Welcome to Echoes in the Gallery. I am your host, Susan L. Sistrunk. As a lifelong artist and educator of the arts, it is my privilege to bring you my first original podcast set in a series of volumes. Tonight, in episode 14, The Switch, Eric and Gwen become unlikely partners and decide on a risky plan. Let us step into the gallery and begin. Episode 14, The Switch. The two were still sitting on opposite sides of Yuri. "Okay, please tell me you know how to get rid of a dead body." Gwen looked at Eric. "Unfortunately, I've had quite a bit of experience," Eric exhaled. After his time in Afghanistan, Eric had become a mercenary. He had been hired to hurt people. Close combat and knife skills were required, as was disposal. Something about cutting Gwen's skin and Jonathan's indifference had left him uneasy despite his experience. That was what bothered him. She was alone. Gwen was stronger than she knew, yet still alone, and it just did not sit well with him. During the daylight is not a good idea. Any chance you have a large freezer of some sort? Gwen had just been thinking the same thing. "Actually, I do. It's out back on the patio, and I have a lock for it." "Okay, would you please empty it out and then come back to help me move him?" Gwen realized she needed to focus. Hard. Time was short. She was supposed to deliver the painting soon. Was that even still a good idea? She wondered what Eric thought and then began to analyze why his opinion mattered. What had just changed? He had hurt her. Why did he come back? Jonathan had abandoned Gwen, and this man who was supposed to kill her came back to save her. She carried in the items from the freezer. Thankfully, there wasn't much. When she walked into the room, Eric had taken out Yuri's wallet and was putting all of his identification into a plastic bag. "I'll find a dumpster for this. It's most likely all fake. I don't even think Yuri is his real name." "Is Eric your real name?" Gwen asked softly. "No, but that's not important right now. Do me a favor and grab his legs." Gwen was stronger than she looked, Eric realized. She couldn't weigh more than 110 pounds and was picking up the legs of Yuri's 6'2" frame like it was nothing. Eric peered out into the backyard through the window and noticed a privacy fence. This was good. Less noticeable. Together, they worked to get Yuri's body out the back door. They loaded him into the freezer, and Gwen shut the lock on the door. "No one else uses this, do they?" "Just Jonathan, but I doubt I'll be seeing him anytime soon." "Why is that?" He tried to keep the question light, but was wondering if Gwen knew Jonathan had been injured. "He double-crossed me. He stole a painting that belongs to a private collector and replaced it with a forgery. And I don't even know how to deal with that right now. I have no clue where he is at the moment." "Well, I have an idea who he might be with. I followed you to see that the painting switch was made and noted that Jonathan never showed up." Gwen figured someone had been watching. "When he didn't show, I went to the gallery on a hunch. He ran out from around the back and was covered in blood. He got into his car and drove to a nearby parking garage. A woman was there waiting for him. Red hair, dishy. Sound familiar?" "That's Rachel. She is the one who helped him switch the painting at the gallery without my knowledge. She is completely insane, so be careful dealing with her." "Did they have a romantic involvement?" Eric eyed her closely. "Years ago. Right now, let's focus on getting Ivan off his painting." "How did you switch it by yourself?" He was impressed by Gwen's persistence. "Well, it was easier than it looked. It's almost time to go meet Ivanov, so we better focus on that." Gwen didn't quite trust this man completely, and there was no way she was ready to tell him the truth about the forged painting. "What? You can't go meet him. If you do that, he will know Yuri didn't kill you, and then he might try to take care of you himself. You need to stay out of sight." Gwen replied without hesitation. "When Yuri doesn't check in, he will think something happened. I will deliver his painting like nothing ever happened. Then he will have to track down Yuri. When I get back, Let's get rid of the body and plan the next move. You need to act completely normal and contact Ivanov for your directions so that he doesn't suspect you had anything to do with this. You also need to move Yuri's car so it's not right out in front, especially if Ivanov tracks you guys by GPS on the vehicles. I don't like you meeting him alone, but you are right. The car needs to be taken care of, but you know what? I have an idea. Ivanov might actually be able to help us. Eric began to map out his idea. He definitely didn't like his feelings of protectiveness for Gwen, but it was too late now. She met his gaze. That's a good idea. We may be able to use this entire thing to our advantage. It's time to get ready. And don't worry, as she picked up her .38, I won't be alone. Eric sighed. Let's get this part finished. 30 minutes later, Gwen walked into Café Triste on Vallejo Street. Her palms were sweating as she carried the package into the crowded restaurant during rush hour. She had planned this place on purpose. Gwen knew the owners. They had purchased several paintings from her. She spotted Ivanov immediately and kept a straight face as his eyes lit up with surprise. Gwen smiled at Ivanov as she was seated. As he looked into her eyes, he realized something had changed. Would you like a glass of Chardonnay? I ordered us a bottle. Why not? It's time for a little relaxation. Your painting is right here. As Ivanov poured the Chardonnay, Gwen slid the wrapped painting toward him on the table. I think you'll be satisfied, and I have some very interesting information to share with you. Some very, very useful information. Ivanov sipped his wine. What had happened? This was not the meek woman he had met before. She was definitely harboring something. And what had happened to Yuri? Why was she still alive? I'm listening. He looked at her with a newfound respect. He had an idea that Gwen was about to play hardball, and it intrigued him. Would you like to inspect the painting first? Gwen smiled sweetly. Why don't you just cut to the chase, Gwen? You know I'm a collector of information. Remember your painting on loan at the gallery? The Kandinsky? Ivanov felt a bit of dread in his stomach. He had loaned it for an exhibition. Yes, of course, it's one of my prized pieces, and I'm in the process of procuring another. Well, Jonathan, without my knowledge, gave it to a third party, painted a forged version, and hung it in the gallery. I learned this today. Would you like to know who he gave it to? They had moved out onto the back patio. Ivanov reached into his suit jacket pocket, making Gwen nervous. Ivanov pulled out a cigarette case and a gold lighter. He lit a cigarette, inhaled, and after slowly releasing the smoke, he softly said to Gwen, Indeed I would. This concludes episode 14 of Echoes in the Gallery. Please join me, your host, Susan L. Sistrunk, next week for episode 15, The Collaboration. Until then, thank you for listening. Stay safe and love each other.